So,
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Bob. On your test, we're.
Good morning.
Run water over it. It would look different.
Can you hear me?
All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If everyone would mind rising, if you're able, to allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. If the clerk would please call the roll. Here.
Ms. Bailey. Ms. Momke.
Here.
Ms. Franklin.
Here.
Mr. Gordy. Ms. Hayes. Ms. Holmes.
Here.
Mr. Karantonis.
Here.
Ms. Vasquez Luna. Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Ms. Mensing.
Here.
Mr. Stork.
Here.
Mr. Angry.
Here.
Mr. Bodie.
Here.
And Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Wonderful, and thank you for those who helped us make that quorum by being here today. We're going to start with our safety moment, and I'll call on Dallas for that.
Good morning. Thank you all. We have made assignments in the back of the room. If you have an assignment, please raise your hand. Thank you all. We know the exit points here for the room. Follow the lighted exit placard signs out of the room. Situational awareness is be aware and mindful to look to the person to your right and help be responsible for them in case we do have to exit this space. Safety and security is always of mind for the VRE. I appreciate your attention to it. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, next, the agenda. Everybody's had an opportunity to review. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Ms. Bomke, how do you vote? Oh, you know what? I
Aye.
just realized I didn't do the motion to allow Ms. Bomke to participate electronically. So let's pause and do that. Could I have a motion to allow Ms. Bomke to participate electronically?
So moved.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Karantonis, a second by Mr. Stork. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Mrs. Bomke is now.
For the record, the reason.
Oh, yes. Ms. Bonke's out of town on vacation and has requested to participate in the meeting remotely. And her participation has been approved by the room here. So we're going to go back down to the approval of agenda. I believe there was a motion by Ms. Holmes and then a second by Mr. Bodie. Ms. Bonke, how do you vote on the agenda?
Aye.
All right. And all those in the room in favor? Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the minutes from the September 19th, 2025 VRE Operations Board meeting. Does anyone have any corrections or amendments to those minutes? All right, not seeing or hearing any, am I to entertain a motion?
Move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Bonke, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Are all those in the room in favor? Any opposed? There's one abstention from Mr. Angry. Thank you. All right, the minutes are approved. Moving on to the chair comments. there's lots of them today, so here we go. We're joined today by VRE's acting CEO, Dallas Richards. We're very grateful to Mr. Richards for stepping into the role of CEO during this transition period, and we look forward to working with him in his new capacity. I can share that we're off to a great start. Dallas and I had a great meeting earlier this week. Excuse me, in preparation for this meeting, and I want to thank him for throwing himself into this task. It's an interesting time to step in. I also want to highlight planning has begun for the annual Santa train. It will take place on Saturday, December 13th. For those of you who are new or have not had a chance, I really encourage you to try to be there, whether you're a Santa or a Mrs. Claus or a very large elf, we would be happy to have you. It's really a wonderful event, and the kids enjoy it, and VRE does a beautiful job executing it each year. So if you have any interest, you can let me know, let Dallas know, and we'll get you the details. I found in the past VRE is able to accommodate sort of which line you want to be on, what time of day. So let us know. Nominating committee. So at the November Operations Board meeting, I will announce who will participate on the nominating committee for the 2026 Operations Board Executive Committee positions. We typically like this committee to be made up of one member from each commission. So if you're interested in serving, please let me know, or you may be volunteered. If you're interested though, please let me know. It's a small committee. It meets once to prepare the slate, which would then be presented in December. And to be clear, that's the nominating committee for our own executive committee positions for chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. At the November Operations Board meeting, we're going to take an annual board photo. So we're going to, please try to be here a little early, 8:45 or so. We take them picture right out front, dressed to impress, and we'll see you then for the photo. And finally, in November, the audit committee will also be meeting prior to the ops board meeting in lieu of the executive committee meeting. The finance committee meeting will meet after our ops board meeting. So be here early for the photo at 8:45. If you're on the exec committee please be here at 8:30. And if you're on finance committee, please plan to stay after the November meeting for that meeting. And lastly, I just want to welcome and thank Victor Angry and Kenny Bodie, who are here today in their alternate roles, helping us meet quorum and filling in. We're really happy to have them and appreciate their participation today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being here. Those are my comments. We turn now to the acting CEO report.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity to be here and work with the board. VRE continues its commitment to safety every day. Safe service is paramount. I did, in my feed this week, see an article in The Atlantic, of all places, about the safety and how people will only use transit when they feel safe. And I encourage you to spread that good word about the safety of VRE. There's been some question about FRA and during the shutdown. To be clear, FRA inspectors are still at work. The FRA agency is hard at work to maintain the safety protocols in our industry, and we are part of that. We are working with that as well. FDA funding continues for our works and ongoing efforts. Just in the photo, it just makes me think about, drills and drills and drills, right? We do this again and again. This is a recent effort with busting out glass and getting passengers out of a car. It's that muscle memory so that it's innate when you are in an emergency situation. And we do that regularly. So thank you for that. Next. Working on-time performance, reporting for both lines. We actually had some measured improvement in the last month or so, and certainly over last year, we were 86% on the Manassas line, 78% on the Fredericksburg, and combined for an 82% on-time performance. Again, year over year, slight improvement. Next, on-time performance. Again, I want to point out a few things here. We had 119 system-wide. For we'll say not delayed trains, if you will, right? And so I've asterisked one of them because this is telling a story that you're going to see in a moment with one of the board items, right? We've had a couple of long delays, very long, more than 30-minute delays, and something we're working through on the system. But overall improvements on that. Basically, even with those much longer delays, our delay per train was still only a minute more than last month. And so we're working through these items, and we'll paint that picture for you here a little bit more as we go. Overwhelming majority of those delays are related to train congestion on the system. And one that I want to just point out, because it's that time of year, and it's a weird one, but it's leaf oil, right? And we're taking some measures to help with that effort and in anticipation of fallen leaves, wet rail, and what that means to our locomotives in the system. Moving on, again, telling the story, kind of what these are coming from. These train congestion is largely attributed to Amtrak trains, largely out of slot, the train congestion piece of this. Moving into the system, we had a situation, a Friday and a Monday both, where we actually had an Amtrak train was early, 30 minutes early, 24 minutes early, but because it's out of slot, it affected our earlier trains, and then delayed cascading of 4 trains in the morning. So it has real impacts to us, but we are working with our partners at Amtrak and dispatch and trying to help through some of those things, right? Moving on, for monthly ridership. Basically, we expected more ridership in the month of September. Historically, we always do. And not as much so much this year. In fact, it was flat, essentially flat compared to the month of July. Increase over August, but flat in the month of July. I won't report on October, but we all know what happened on October 1st and what that's done to ridership. Numerically, it's probably 25% off from the month prior based on the federal shutdown. Again, ADR, working through the ADR, essentially flat compared to the month of July, steady, much greater than last year, obviously, but holding steady there. That will have some impact from the shutdown on our annual total numbers as well. That. I just want to thank all of our sponsors. The Tour de VRE was last Saturday. It's always the first Saturday in October. And so put it on your calendar for next year. Rich is offered to ride as long as Mr. Stork rides. I think that was the promise. Yeah. Which I want to see that for sure. But we had 250 riders this year. That's 100 more riders than last year. And I just want to make the point, we raised over almost $6,000 for breast cancer, Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation. It was a huge success, a lot of fun. I want to thank Sarah, Ms. Bagley, Chair Bagley, for being there and getting us started in the morning at Back Lake Road. She wasn't able to ride this year, but she'll be out there next year with us too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, a lot of fun. It's just the spirit of the event, but we couldn't do it without our sponsors, our volunteers, the staff, the train crew. Everyone is out there and really makes this happen. It is one of those ways we touch every community along that line in one day in one spell swoop. So we appreciate that. That is quickly becoming my favorite day of the year. Let's move to Chris Henry's favorite day of the year, Clifton Day. Worked at Clifton Day, that was this weekend. It was on Sunday, annual event. We were concerned about the weather, but as you can tell from the photograph in the grade crossing, there were literally thousands of people that show up for this event. We run, I want to say every train was on time to the minute. How many trains was it, Chris? We ran that day? In and out?
Total in and out, about 16 trains.
16 trains, all on time to the minute.
Everyone on time, first time.
First time ever. And it was quite the event. The young man on the right, I was standing at Rolling Road platform getting on to head to the event and met the father, Patrick, and this young man. I gave him one of our challenge coins and he was elated. And that's what it's all about, right? That's a future rider, maybe a future employee. You never know, right? That kid will grow up and remember that day. And so we are out there, we are having fun, and we were doing good stuff. And just wanted to share that. It's a great event. I want to thank all especially the Keola staff that were there and helped us get this delivered. Finally, next Tuesday, it is important that we put down the tools every once in a while and celebrate success. And that's what we're going to do on Tuesday. Tuesday at 2, the invites are out. It's Vincent, I know you're excited for this one, right? We're very excited. It is the landscape of Manassas Park has changed in a very good way, and we're very excited to be a big part of that. And this event is on Tuesday. We will celebrate the success. I will tell you, the garage is currently open. We had a soft opening because we had to pave the lot. We had a milling and paving project approved by the board that was completed because we were able to shift all the traffic to the garage. Now we are seeing the traffic spread between the two facilities. It's been a huge success. You'll hear more about that on Tuesday. So with that, that is my report.
Thank you. And I would just highlight for the board members, as we are talking about the work windows impacts, I think this on-time performance story, that's how we use sort of, if people are concerned about on-time performance, that's how we link it back to, that's why we're doing all this work. So I'm glad that it's improving. I mean, we want it to continue to improve, but I think in some ways it helps tell the story of why are we doing all this work for the next 5 years. It's to address these on-time performance challenges, which are primarily congestion. So let's try to spin that, messaging as much as we can. Moving on to public comment. VRE accepts public comments both in person and electronically via the VRE website. Members of the public wishing to make comments have 3 minutes and should state their full name and the jurisdiction they live in. Written comments submitted before 8 a.m. this morning will be forwarded to the members of the board and attached to the official minutes. Do we have any members of the public here who would like to address the board? I'm not seeing any hands. Madam Clerk, do we have any electronically submitted comments?
Madam Chair, we did not have any.
All right, then we will move into our consent agenda. I'd request a motion to approve the consent agenda with items 9A and 9B.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Bonke, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
And all those in favor in the room?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. Moving on to our action items. Item 10A, authorization to execute a contract for construction of the Alexandria Station and King Street and Commonwealth Avenue Bridge Replacement Project. Mr. Richards.
Madam Chair, thank you. This project is, this is an exciting day. It's a long time in the coming. Spare you the history, but we are moving forward with this project. We have completed a competitive bidding process. I would make a comparison for us that the magnitude of this project, many of us remember the Loop project and how exciting that was and what it meant to VRE, what it means to VRE still today. This project is about double the value of that one. Right, think about that. So, and this is, you'll see a pattern here today, transforming rail in Virginia projects. We have 4 board items related to 3 different TRV projects, right? All of them are very exciting, but the magnitude of these projects is growing. What we do and how much we do is significantly changing. And this is the first of many projects for that delivery. Those are my comments in the stated amounts with the contingency for your consideration. I'll take any questions.
Yeah, talking.
Just for my identification. So the contingency here is 10%. I guess this accounts for the wild ride that right now construction prices are. Is the contract constructed in a way that commits the 100 million?
The 100 million is the value, and the contingency is over and above the 100 million. So for the total of 110, that is the contract authorization. So that gives us the ability, VRE, the ability to manage those day-to-day change orders in that 10% window.
That would be for change orders, because otherwise the offer would be
Flat 100 million.
binding to build at the price offer.
Correct.
Just want to state that I appreciate Dallas's comments that this is important for the Alexandria 4-track project and the sequencing and VRE moving quickly to bring this to your board. Just after last week, Dallas, we were on a board meeting where our board approved $1 million or so of funding for King and Commonwealth. So it's very important to us that as we are building the 4-track and then further south building a 3rd track, continue to improve roads that impact the rail, because every time a vehicle strikes the bridge there, especially at King Street, someone has to come out from CSX and inspect to make sure it's okay. It happened a few years ago during rush hour, the whole East Coast for a couple hours. So very important project that we're doing here. So thank you for after we approved our funding for quickly bringing it to the board. Thank you.
Ms. Cascazuna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my question is more about the overall. I know we always do a 10%, but I really have never heard back. Like, is that always used, or was the past on, in the past year or in the past quarter? Because we always have to do it. Yeah.
It is not always used. In fact, one of the success stories at Manassas Park, we used very little of our contingency. Right? It is a matter of the contingency is there to manage the unknown unknowns. Right? You have known unknowns of you kind of fall in these windows of things you think are going to happen, potentially happen, but it's helped us to manage the unknown unknowns, things that come up. It also allows us to, do extra work that you find that you discovered during it may or may not be directly related to the contract, right? For instance, so we've been able to do that at Manassas Park as well, and not use the full contingency. In fact, I make the point strongly to the contractors that that's ours, not yours, right? And we use it if we need it and only if we need it. So.
Any other comments or questions?
Final question, just to make sure. Labor standards for that. I know that we have a standard way to do that, but can we restate it just for reminder?
Mhm.
So is that prevailing wage? This is a big contract.
It's a federal contract, Davis-Bacon is in effect. So we have to use prevailing wages. And those are each month when we get invoice from contractor, it's a certified payroll from Davis-Bacon.
Thank you.
Well, I'm certainly excited about this project. To Mike's point about the bridge strikes, the increasing the capacity with the fourth track is huge, but replacing these bridges in Alexandria is going to be really significant for everybody who moves through that space. Avoiding the bridge strikes is really important, but also the space underneath. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into the design and sort of the stretching out a bit of I'm going to say piers, which isn't the technical word, but the footings for the bridge will be a little wider, which will facilitate better movement underneath the bridge for cars, pedestrians, cyclists. And so Alexandria locally is really going to benefit from this as well. And so I'm excited, appreciate what I hope will be the board's support for this action. And the next one, if there's no other comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second on item 9A. Ms. Bonke, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
All right, all those in the room in favor? Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Moving on to 9B, which is authorization to execute a sole source contract for construction administration services for the Alexandria Station improvements and King Street and Commonwealth Bridge replacement project. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'll point out this is directly related to the King and Commonwealth, the project we just mentioned. HDR named here in the board item is our engineer of record. Their services are required for the construction administration of the bridge. Basically, that is detailed shop drawing review, technical reviews. If we have to issue bulletins related to the project work, all of those things are required by the engineer of record and only the engineer of record. To transfer that liability in the design to another engineering firm would be costly in time and money, especially in time at this point where, as Mr. McLaughlin pointed out, it is timely that we get this project started in concert with the fourth track. They have to go together. These three projects really have to be delivered in concert, in harmony with one another. So it's imperative that we do so. Service, I'll remind folks that service contracts, professional services are not based on price. And so we have to make the selection, and we've chosen to go with the sole source delivery with our engineer of record. There is strong precedent in many of the jurisdictions around the table for such application, and we ask you to do so.
Any comments or questions on that? I know I was curious about the sole source, but Dallas has sort of explained the precedent, the history on that, and the reasons to do it in this case. So I'm supportive of action item 9B. If there's no other comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
All right, thank you. Second, all right, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Bonke, how do you vote?
Aye.
All those in favor in the room?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 9B passes. 9C is authorization to execute a sole source contract for new locomotive motor braking transfer switches. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item is a bit complicated. I'll try to unpack it for you as quickly as I can, but it basically comes down to a life cycle maintenance activity that we are doing for the locomotives. The transfer switch is basically MB switch. It's a motor braking. It basically changes it from propulsion to stopping, if you will, generating power. The switch transfers. There are 4 of these switches in every locomotive in the high voltage box right behind where the engineer sits in the cab. And we replaced these switches in the last year as part of the LCM. We have had a number of failures in those switches, and we are concerned and would like to replace them again with OEM parts. Thus the reason for the sole source solicitation for these products, and need to get it switched out. Some of the time delays that you saw that I mentioned a moment, the story is that when these fail, they fail pretty big. And we had upwards of 75, 80-minute delays in these failures in the last couple of months. And we are pursuing, with a sole source OEM parts for the locomotives to get them replaced. I'll entertain them.
Ms. Franklin.
Yeah, just a quick question. So I'm assuming we're going to attempt to go with the different
Correct.
contract as opposed to who we were going with initially that led to.
Correct. The initial solicitation was a low bid process, lowest bid selection, and we're seeing the results of that.
Yeah, and just generally, do we have to always go with the lowest bid? I know it's more.
The PPA requires this.
Yeah, so I'm assuming in this case, are we still having to go with the lowest bid?
Sole source now.
Well, that's the conversation we should
Oh,
have
yeah.
about having more flexibility with that. I mean, I understand the importance of going with the lowest bid,
Do not agree.
in terms of stewardship, but sometimes you get what you pay for.
Correct. Could not agree more. And we are exploring, I'm working with council, working for, options for enforcement of the contract terms as well. So that is another thing we're working through. But yes, I think especially with locomotives, it's one thing that we should have some license with specific OEM parts.
Where's the opportunity to have that conversation? Where's the advocacy on that happen?
I think we'll start with Kristen and the procurement team, contracts procurement team on that one.
Okay.
And also with the mechanical teams represented here, Sarah and others. So
Okay.
it's an important conversation we need to have about not just the locomotives, but our cars as well. There are very specific parts that obviously perform better than others, we'll say. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, I appreciate the question, Ms. Franklin, because I think it's one we should as a board be mindful of, moving forward, paying attention to sort of these different sourcing methods. Any other, Go
I do want to make one more point, if I may. This is not a safety concern. That just because it's motor and braking doesn't mean that we don't have brakes, right? That we've taken measures. We are working to take those measures right now to mitigate some of this in the short term, namely cutting out the dynamic braking. We've made a request of the FRA to do so, and we're working on that. In fact, delivered a letter yesterday and are waiting for a response from FRA to cut out dynamic braking, which again is not a safety concern. It's just a train handling for us as well. So we are trying to mitigate those potential failures on the network to mitigate those delays, prevent those delays.
Considered an abnormal failure rate. What are you looking at? 1 in a million or 1 in X number? What's the?
Well, it's a
And is
zero
that
failure rate of
manufacturer with the level of failure that was?
the failure rate in the contract, and I'm going to ask Kristen to step up if need be. There was a number of failures over a certain period, like 3 over 6 months or 3 over 5 months. I'll forget the exact number, but we've had over 5 failures. Yeah, 3 over a year.
Breach of contract assumption.
Can you repeat that a little louder, Kristen, so we can?
There's 3 failures over the 1-year warranty period represents a breach of contract in accordance with the contract terms for the rehabilitated parts that we received. And just offer that. These are new parts, new OEM parts. The contract that we previously awarded was for a rehab effort, which is where we were seeing the failures. So it's a difference between a rehab part and a rehab.
Is there consequence for the manufacturers or what's the?
We are pursuing that now. Yes.
What does that typically mean?
Well, it could
Not to be
reimbursement.
specific, but just
Yeah,
generally what.
things like reimbursement for delay, all sorts of measures, and I'll turn to the McJown for that. But yeah, there are other measures.
Okay, well, I'd like to get an update on that,
Sure.
at least in executive committee or in closed session at some
Absolutely.
future date.
Can do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
No, I think that's a valuable conversation. And yeah, appreciate the follow-up either at the next meeting or when we
Absolutely.
have more information. Any other questions, comments on this item? Okay, I would entertain a motion on 9C.
So moved.
Thank you. All right, with motion and a second. Ms. Baumke, how do you vote on 9C?
I vote aye, and I just want to say I appreciate all the questions from the board to staff about this item. Thank you.
And Ms. Bomke, I'm sorry, I will try to remember to come to you for comments as well.
Oh,
before
no,
we-
I
we
was
vote.
good. I didn't raise my hand.
Okay. All right, all those in the room in favor? All right, any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. 9D, authorization to execute a contract for on-call photography and videography services. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the board, for the amount stated in here, award a contract for two different parties, JPEX LLC of Virginia and Madison Film of Alexandria. The service here is coming to you we do a number of events, as you saw this morning, right? And we do have reason for videography and photography services, both for these sorts of efforts, also for marketing efforts. If any of you seen any of our recent videos in social media, there are times and needs for those efforts. We are choosing to use a different mechanism instead of a pay-go individual contract, set up basically a task order assignment, task order similar to an MEC, GEC type contract for such services. You'll notice the annual amount is actually less than board authorization threshold, but for the total, it's for the 3-year term is over that, and that's the reason we're coming for that today. We did share this, and when we had our VCC meeting with the jurisdictions in the week before, one of the questions that came about is there a rider for this, and other jurisdictions can ride on this contract and have such services as well through this. So that was an interesting question that we don't normally get, but because of this, the nature of this one, it was interesting. So I'll offer that. With that, Madam Chair.
I'm just kind of tickled that it's my hometown and my current home that are the
That's fun.
business locations. Virginia Beach
Alexandria.
and Alexandria, yeah, are awarded the contracts. No, I appreciate that, and I'm glad it's set up this way so that we can use as we need. And certainly we'll have some need for some video over the next few years, some promotional video. Any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Stork.
What is the typical amount we spend? Is 175,000 typical, or is it 100,000, or that's just you gave yourself?
Far less than that.
That's what I want.
It's
Any,
far less.
I don't, an order of magnitude, 50,000, just approximation.
Turn to contracts and ask for that number if we have a
Yeah, just-
have an average off the
You
top
have
of
it.
our head.
If not, just, I'm curious, just send it to me later.
It has definitely been within our small purchase threshold historically, which is under 100,000, but bringing them together, they've both been under 100, but bringing them together, I think there is a potential to go over that small purchase threshold, and that's why we wanted to get rid of that and complete this. And also, it's its own call task order contract, so there's no obligation on our part to, to commit to the.
To use anything else, right?
Yes,
Directly not for that matter. Yes.
correct.
Thank you.
Ms. Dunn.
Thank you, and it's more like a comment than a question first. When did you say it was gonna be the picture?
What?
The picture?
Oh, November.
Okay, and I understand my ask is like, we do have elections in November. We might have new people, not everywhere, but we might have new board members in January. I don't understand why the pictures are done in November or December when you're gonna have, maybe a newly, elected or re-elected chair and new appointment, board members. That's more, because it's the same subject.
Yeah, no, it's actually an interesting question. I'll defer to sort of historical VRE practice here. Maybe somebody can speak to.
Historically, the picture's been taken in the fall, usually in October, so back to school pictures kind of thing, but no, usually in the fall period, not in the spring.
Yeah, but it is an interesting question though. Is there a reason why we don't do it earlier? Forward
Do it in
tenure?
February. We
Yeah.
can entertain it. There's thoughts in the back.
There's no particular reason why we do it in the fall. We do it one every year, though. Basically, we learn evidence for that year, and we use it in documents that then have historical information about the board and what happened. We have basically a type document. So we want to do it every year. I think it just ended up being in the fall rather than the first couple of months of any particular year. Sometimes they're scrambling on who's actually on VRE. So it takes a couple of months till we know who's exactly on board.
The documents to which Joe is referring is typically published in December, year in review type document. That photo is used typically, but that document's been taken a month or two from.
And that's my complaint.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a fair point that perhaps next year we could consider doing it in May or June, once we sort of have the board settled and, have the membership settled. Yeah, it's a fair point. It sort of hadn't really occurred to me either that it's, would capture the group late. Any other questions on 9D or comments? All right, not seeing any, I will entertain a motion. Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. A second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Baumke, how do you vote on 9D?
Aye.
All those in favor in the room?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along. 9E, authorization to amend the contract for engineering and environmental services for the VRE L'Enfant Station and Fourth Track Project.
10E.
Oh, what did I say? I said 9A. I'm sorry. 10E, thank you. 10E, Mr. Richards, if you could introduce the item.
Sure. This item relates to L'Enfant Station. Obviously, we are moving forward with the CMGC approach for delivery of this project. That is not related directly, but we have engineer of record that has gotten us to the current design level 30%. We would like to employ that same engineer of record through the final design period. That was their contract was solicited and awarded through a competitive process. In that contract, it had an optional task, if you will, that was reserved for final design. We would like to execute that optional task for the set the amount stated in the contract. We are moving, very quickly through the design and working on the CMGC, which we plan to have out soon, if you will. So it is all part of that. We need to have this contract in place so that we can move forward.
All right, thank you for the summary. Any comments or questions on item 10E? Thank you.
Sure. Like I said earlier, this project's also important for transforming rail in Virginia. A lot of people focus on Long Bridge, but Long Bridge does not get you all the way to Union Station. L'Enfant is that gap between where Long Bridge ends. It literally ends at LE, which stands for L'Enfant. I know Dallas wants that. And then it continues another, just starting the bottom, so I believe up to CP Virginia, where the passenger trains go into Union Station and the CSX trains continue to a different tunnel. So thank you for moving this forward, and I believe, I do have a question though. Has the CMGC contract been released for bid yet?
It's not. Not yet. It is coming soon.
It's like I said, it's important to move this forward because we are working to have Long Bridge done by the end of 2030. So I believe this is on a similar time frame, hopefully a few months sooner, because there are some tie-ins needed for the Long Bridge project.
This contract is one of the dominoes that needs to be part of that sequential progression for delivering L'Enfant.
I should also say that for CMGC, it is typical, we have CMGC project, it's typical to keep the early designer on throughout the project. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions on this item? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on 10E. Thank you. A second? Second. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Ms. Baumke, how do you vote on 10E?
Aye.
All those in the room in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the item passes. Item 10F, authorization to amend a GEC 8 task order for final engineering design support for the Franconia Springfield Station Improvements Project. Alice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the amount stated in the item, GE task order amendment, for HDR for Franconia Station. A little bit broken record, but this is another one of those TRB projects that needs more attention from final design effort. Again, this was part of their task order, and keep moving this effort forward with final design. In the design up to date, we have discovered, learned through discovery, if you will, additional works that need to be done, rehabbing staircases and rehabbing the bridge, measures that need to be taken for design purposes for the construction forthcoming, right? And again, needing to stay ahead of our partners at VRE for delivery. That, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, certainly transforming rail is a big theme today.
It is a big thing.
Any comments or questions on this item?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for this. Just a question. I know it's still sort of early on. Do you have a time frame on once we approve this, sort of the way ahead and what the time frame looks like to complete it?
I don't have, there's so many of them, they all kind of run together. I don't have, but the fact that we're this close on the final design part of it and moving with this element, it's, we're looking at, I want to say early next year for soliciting this work. And again, it's all in concert. You may remember some of the complexities of Crystal City and how the timing of all of that. But this is one of those as well where that Berry Road, for instance, is the nexus of several projects, including the third track, Franconia third track. It is an entry point for that, is an entry point for construction of the bypass by BPRA as well, and it's an entry point for our station project. So this work that we have to stay ahead of that work in order to deliver our tunnel, for instance, that's going to the station prior to the third track construction that goes above it. So it is literally the proper order and sequence of things it has to have, but within the next 12 months, yes.
Madam Chair. And I appreciate that because, I try to keep abreast, not on the operations board, some of these bigger projects that are part of this. And I saw this as sort of the hub and the spokes of all the other projects that we need to get this one right in order to make sure everything else continues moving forward. Because without, frankly, the entries and everything else, you're kind of sort of stuck. So I just sort of to ask that for clarity to make sure that we're still very much on track, pun intended, with this one. That wasn't after a lot of other dominoes, to your point, that have to fall not long after this.
Indeed.
I appreciate that. It's, there's a lot of sequential work here that we're queuing up.
Yeah.
So any other questions and comments on regarding Franconia Springfield? All right, I'd entertain a motion on 10F. Yes, there's a motion. A second?
Second.
Right, thank you. There's been a motion and a second. Ms. Bomke, how do you vote?
Aye.
And all those in the room in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 10G, authorization to amend the custodial and seasonal services for VRE facilities task order for on-call services. Dallas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the amount stated in the board item, we seek approval for VRE's contractor Fresh Air. Just short of safety is cleanliness. And we do a lot of work with Fresh Air and they stay ahead of our stations. They have routine visits to the stations on a daily basis to keep them clean. This task order goes back, and this is for a 3-year period moving forward, updating their additional $80,000 for that duration. These are for small to medium items, efforts that we have them. For instance, special events, we mentioned that there's a theme there again today, having them out there for set up and tear down and trash removal and all the things that they do to help us deliver those events. Special cleanings, debris removal, and tree clearing. It's all the sort of smaller to medium things that occur under this contract. So I would ask to help us deliver that and keep that going.
Excuse me. Any questions or comments on this item? I'm curious, with sort of extreme weather events happening with increasing frequency, are we seeing more need for these services in terms of the impacts from storms and weather?
I would say not out on the right of way. There are some times on the platforms, obviously, but taking care of those sorts of things. But this is things like painting, like the day-to-day stuff that keeps it fresh and keeps it clean. So not so much on these special events. That's a separate task order. We do that on a task order assignment if we need them. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, Ms. Franklin?
So just to be clear, this is more so to take care of like unforeseen weather events, as opposed to like labor costs and things like that.
So it's intended for, we have a task order base, so there's sort of different buckets we manage this contract. One, we have a standing one that does the day-to-day daily cleaning every day. That is part of one contract. This is for one-offs, but smaller one-offs that aren't the larger task orders assigned under this contract. So that's what this is intended for.
Okay, but I just saw that the price increase and that's what we need to do.
Yes, the rates are slightly higher for this 3-year term. So it's an adjustment there.
And that's also why we're having to approve this item, because
Correct.
each year would be underneath the spending authority.
Correct.
What's the total value?
Correct, total value.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this item? 10G. All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thanks, Ms. Holmes. A second? Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Bomke, how do you vote?
Aye.
All those in the room in favor? Any opposed? All right, the item is approved. Lastly, 10H, recommend approval to extend the lease agreement for the north parking lot at Broad Run Station. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the amount stated here in the agreement, this would extend our lease at the Broad Run Station for a parcel adjacent to the airport. We had hoped by this time to be complete with our permitting process and actually have asked to take possession of this parcel as work basically to adjoin the adjacent parcels that we own today and going forward. We have not completed that process. We're still in the review process for the site permit and the building permit. But for that reason, though, we need to extend this lease for another year until we can complete those.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for that synopsis. I know I was sort of asking some questions about our expectation in a year or less time to be moving to purchase. And my understanding is there's many layers of city and county ownership and operations here, complicating the process.
Yeah, correct. Let me unpack a little bit of that. The Broad Run Station falls within two jurisdictions, right? And literally the station is currently bisected by the city of Manassas and Prince William County. The project going forward actually put the entire platform portion of the project in Manassas and the other two buildings entirely within Prince William County. One of the things we've been asked to do by the county, for instance, is do a boundary adjustment. There's a new building that would be built that literally would be bisected by a parcel boundary. So we've been asked to adjust that boundary, for instance. The station portion is adjacent to the airport. We've been working with the Airport Commission on that property, that parcel, and how that might look going forward. We've been leasing this parcel for quite some time and would hope to make it part of the station parcel as going forward as part of the project. And one of the consent agendas, for instance, items was for the special track work. And so this project is moving forward, but the projection is that 12 months out, we'd be delivering the special track work to the site. We'd have the parcel taken care of, and then we can move forward with the construction.
So that's the context there, but I do look forward to when we're not leasing it anymore and
Correct.
just have it clarified. And
The stated ambition is that there's something that we maintain, and we do maintain this, right? The goal, the stated goal would be if we can own what we maintain, it makes a lot more sense.
Great, yeah. Any other comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion. Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. A second? Did I hear one? Okay. So there's a motion and a second. Ms. Baumke, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, all those in the room in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, the motion passes. We are moving into the information portion of our docket. The first item on the agenda is the draft 2026 legislative agenda.
Thank you. Joe?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Joe Swartz, I'm the Director of Affairs. So yeah, it's that time of year to start talking about the legislative agenda for 2026. Just a reminder on how the timing of this works. So had legislative committee for proposed items in the agenda, bringing this as an information item today for discussion. After that discussion, we'll make any changes that you guys want to see in this, if any. We will bring it back as an action item next month. The action is a recommendation. This is one of those things that the commissions have to pass on our behalf. So action next month, and then we'll take it to the commissions in December, which is typically when the commissions also pass. So all sort of get tied in together. So I guess the first thing I'll do is look to the chair of the legislative committee, Mr. Karantonis, and see if you want to make any comments.
Oh, I always have one comment first. It is always thank you for the work. And I think the biggest conveyable this year is the system plan. And we've seen already in the commissions when the plan was presented that, it needs to be explained. It needs to be it's not only the plan, but also the intentions and the outlook of the plan and how it fits in Northern Virginia's transportation request. it rhymes also with the legislative agendas of the commissions. So that's the major thing that's a major, task for this year.
If nobody has any other comments, I will jump into the federal side of the draft agenda. And again, and this is true of both the federal and the state agendas. This is a year where we don't have a specific ask or VRE like we did last year. If you'll recall, we had the insurance related ask that was just something for us. Here, we're very much just tied to either industry issues or transit issues at the state level, and supporting sort of legislation that includes a lot of different entities. So first, and probably the largest sort of overarching issue on the federal side of things is that coming years when they're going to pass new surface transportation reauthorization bill. So the numbers in that reauthorization bill are the amounts of funding that we have to basically live with for the next 5 to 6 years. It depends on how long they actually do the authorization bill for. So we'll be working with the rest of the industry. That's both, public transportation. So we'll be working with AFTA. We'll be working with the Commuter Rail Coalition for anything that's sort of specific to commuter rail, and just transportation in general to make sure that those numbers are as high as they possibly can be. The second issue that we have under here is the rail passenger transportation liability gap. As a quick reminder, we have to have a certain amount of liability insurance. It's contractual. The amount that we have to have is based on this liability cap. It goes up every 5 years. It's about to go up again in February of 2026. It is becoming a very, very large part of our operating budget, too large by most people's standards. And this is an industry issue. Everybody in the industry is sort of wringing their hands at the idea of we have to pay more and more and more for liability insurance. So as an industry, we are trying to go to the Hill and make the case that it's too high now. It's certainly going to be too high when it goes up again, a considerable amount in February. And are there ways to fix that? In particular, the Commuter Rail Coalition has been very active in solution to this. We'll continue to work with them. Let's see. The next issue is the System Plan 2050, as the chair of the legislative committee mentioned. On both sides here, this is education. We need people to understand what our 2050 plan is, how that 2050 plan ties into transforming rail in Virginia. And at the federal level, we're going to make the case to anybody that will listen about how what we're doing is important for not just the region, it's important for the state, and it's important for the entire, mid-East Coast area of the United States rail-wise. So again, this is an opportunity for us to educate anybody up on the Hill or in the administration on how important our 2050 plan is and how that works with all the other things that are going on.
I have just a proposal. Since we have the new elected representative from the 11th congressional district, we may offer once a ride with his colleagues who talk shop about how commuter rail really works. I just happened to bump into people also in Midwestern states and local officials, etc. And they face similar challenges, right? Also in California. And so they told me many times, if you get people together, you offer them a nice meal at the end, and you ride with them a couple of hours if you can pin them down. This seems to work. At least they know what they're talking about, and they don't think that these are remote issues somewhere else.
Yeah, every time we're on the Hill, and as a matter of fact, I'll be up on the Hill next Wednesday, we offer Everybody that I talk to arrive, whether that's the actual elected official or staff. We have a lot of staff that comes out and ride. And quite frankly, if they understand VRE, it's easier for them to make the case when some issue comes up. It's not the first time they're understanding. And this is not just Virginia delegation staff. Well, we've taken people from T&I committee, different committees that are important to us. We take the staff associated with them as well so that they know what VRE. We are also in the lucky position here where a lot of staffers actually take VRE to work. So they already know who we are and are always sort of helping us out at least where they can, saying, look, VRE has to be able to run to work.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that, because that spurred a thought that I'm sure you guys probably talk about. But my question is, how engaged have you gotten the bases and the DoD staff and all the folks that frankly ride the train to Quantico? They usually also rely on to go to Belmar. It's part of the same sort of transportation network. And I would think that someone would see it as a needed redundancy because of how clogged up traffic can be. I can say it right now, especially how unsafe air travel is in the region, frankly. So have those conversations been had?
We do that. That sort of falls under more of the sort of marketing and public affairs side of things. They are actually all very good. The Pentagon and others, they're all good about having transportation fairs and that sort of thing. So we always have a table at those transportation fair. Chris's group is really good about getting the customer service folks out there to both advocate for, hey, remember, we're here and we're here for you, need us. And then we're also out there because it's the customer service folks, they can deal with individual riders who may have an issue, or somebody who said, I've been thinking about it, but I don't know, I've got my benefits, how do I deal with that? And they can walk them through how to go. I think they can go right on the phone with them right there and say, well, this is how you go in here and you allocate your benefits and set them up. So I would say we probably go to 3 or 4 different DoD related events every year.
And I, if I could, the reason why I bring it up, and I appreciate that, is because to me, we have to sort of adapt who and how we're advocating the message based on who our audience is, right? And knowing that the current climate in Congress, the current climate of the administration, to me, if those folks who you're already established a relationship with and who see the value could be standing side by side with you all advocating for federal funding, such as we have this conversation, I think it's a good. So it sounds like you guys are sort of already on that track. So I just wanted to socialize that.
Before you move on from the federal section, or Takis, did you have a? I was just wondering if you could speak a little more to the continued access to Washington Union Station, changes in ownership and things happening there.
Yeah, we're just keeping an eye on that, and that continues to be something we don't want to get caught off guard. There was one actually in a reauthorization bill, not the last one, before that. Someone, and nobody's ever taken credit for it, sort of made a very strict definition of what the Northeast Corridor was, one that we weren't very happy with, and we ended up finding it and in the language, and we went up and made the case that that shouldn't be in there. So those are just things that we always want to keep an eye on, because while we work very well with Amtrak, you just don't know, Amtrak and the Union Station folks, you just don't know where one day the contract negotiations are going to break down. And we want to make sure we always have recourse to go to STB or somebody else if those negotiations aren't going well. And we can get in there. We're not getting, we don't have to pay way more than we had been previously.
Thank you. Any other questions on this section or comments? Mr. Stork.
How's 2026 different from 2025's legislative agenda?
There isn't a whole lot. Most of this is sort of evergreen issues. Again, it's things every year we're constantly keeping an eye on because we don't have a particular ask. I think we probably talked about reauthorization last year a little bit. Hasn't been a whole lot of, it's just you're up now for reauthorization. So that's the big one that while it was there last year, we didn't do a whole lot of, we're just starting to, but you know, come early 2026, that's all anybody on the Hill is going to talk about, assuming they're at work, is reauthorization of transportation and the other bills.
Besides the reauthorization, is there anything else that's materially significant from 2025?
No, nothing has changed significantly. Again, it's things that we are constantly on the watch for. I think the very last thing in here is about federal grant programs. Again, that's something, there are years when there are lots of NOFOs, notice of funding opportunity. There are years when there aren't very many. We hope that there are lots coming up, and our federal team that I have here helps us navigate any of these specific grant opportunities, and if it's appropriate, even goes up and advocates for us to get some of this up and running.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Oh, Ms. Holmes, you have
Question. I wanted to go back to the insurance issue, because I know that was on last year's. And is there any movement on that?
Yeah, there actually is. There's a couple of different angles that have been worked here. Part of the issue is the cap is going to go up basically in January of 2026. And right now, the legislation says you have to go get this additional amount within 30 days. As you can imagine, every commuter rail service in the US going to the market at the same time. And this time, it's not a little bump. It's 26 or something last time. This time, it's going to be more like 80 million more. That's the amount of it. Okay. But we're trying to get that extended so we have more time. The industry has more time to go to the markets, and the markets have more time to sort of work their way through and figure out how they're going to provide that much insurance. Because that's really one of the bigger issues there. It's not just cost. We know we're not going to get a great cost when you have everybody going to the market at the same time. But it's also they have the capacity to allow everybody to get the amount of insurance that they need. Now, VRE probably is the only service in the US where your government relations person also has the side jobs in charge of the insurance program. So I can speak to this. We had very in-depth conversations with the brokers as we were getting our 2026 FY26 insurance. We're basically ready to move. That we have handshake deals with them. The insurance is, they'll price it when we actually say we're ready, but they've sort of set that capacity aside for us. So I think we're okay there. But again, there is legislation moving forward that would, I think, does it change it to 60 days, 90 days. So we're not all rushing, within a month, we have to get that amount of insurance in there. But then the bigger issues are also still under discussion, and there's legislative language that would basically lower the current cap if we can do it. It's going to be a hard sell. There are very strong lobbies that would like to see that cap be as high as possible, but we will continue to work to try and bring that cap down so that we can bring our costs down.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mr. Bonke's hand is raised.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Ms. Baumke, your comment?
Yes, thank you. I too have a question. Joe knows I've asked about the insurance with he and Mark. And yeah, because those numbers, as you know, are staggering. My question would be, has the industry considered any unique, I'm going to say financial mechanism, financial instrument where we could do some kind of self-funding up to a certain level, and then you insure above that level? I mean, there are a lot of really smart people in the US that I would think could take this problem and make it so that the liability, if you will, for the rail industry is not as great, because it just seems like the insurance companies are the only ones gaining something from this egregious amount of money.
So the answer is yes. There's been discussions about this. The kink in all of this is that insurance is regulated at a state level, not a federal level. So we have to find ways where we come up with solutions that, as an industry, that can be worked out at all state levels. Now, as you said, Mark and I have had lots of conversations, and we have talked to the Department of Risk Management at the state level to see if there is something specific that we can do, and we continue to have these conversations about the different things that we can change. And we have some ideas for, and nibbling around the corners, we think we can do a little bit. But to have a bigger conversation, and maybe even at some point have somebody that knows this industry way better than we do a study for us on, yes, is there a way to be self-insured or insured through the state or some other method where we're not going out and having to buy so much insurance. So yeah, those discussions are ongoing.
And are those discussions putting the pen to paper? Are we at that point? And if we're not, can we move forward in looking at some analysis? And are you already doing that?
So at the state level, yeah, we continue to have, or we have had conversations with DRM, and Mark and I are continuing to have conversations with folks that can help us come up with a plan. Some of this ends up being, we have to have somebody help us write the question the correct way. So we're working on that. And at the federal level, there are, CRC again is sort of standing up basically a committee to work on how they would do a fix at the federal level. So pen to paper, I'm not sure we don't have legislation or legislative language yet. That's ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Short.
I was going to ask Mike if the state is at all about this as BPRA and looking to at least self-insure up to a stop loss level that, that will at least reduce the amount of insurance we'd have to buy.
I'm not our insurance guy. I didn't do secondary picture of this. So I'll have to check into that.
I would think with all the rail that the state's added that
We do have, we definitely have insurance, especially since we now own actually land 5 jurisdictions. And we already owned something that we call Fire Branch, C6 to Richmond Allegheny Division. So we've owned land for a few years. We definitely have insurance. I just don't know the levels.
just more, maybe they would find a way to coordinate among the entities that are doing it. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Dennis.
I'd like to bring safety into this conversation, right? And Joe mentioned the kink here. One of the kinks that's not been discussed is since the implementation of PPC and what that's done for the industry. And I think the industry needs to stand up and wave that flag and help manage some of this as well. And I think that should be part of the conversation, Joe. And I think you recognize that. We need to put that out there as well as industry, whether it's the commuter rail side of it or rail in general side of it, but bring evidence, right?
Yeah, and that's really sort of the starting point for some of the legislative language at CRC. And actually, I'll let you know that our government relations team they came up with some of the ideas and authored that language. So we have the best people on our team too. But it starts with the premise of the industry and the freight rails as well spent up to $1 billion putting PTC in to make things safer. Why have we not seen any cost savings or lowering of the cap because of that? If we are that much safer as an industry, we should see something for that.
We moving on.
Any level? Okay, I'll quickly go into the state level, again, we don't have any specific asks. We're going to take every opportunity to educate legislators and anybody else that will listen about TRV, the 2050 plan, how all of that works together. As everybody knows, SJ 28 is moving forward. SJ 28 should have some sort of legislative outcome that is going to, answer some of the questions of how do we fund WMATA, how do we fund the local transit agencies, and how do we fund VRE. So we have been specifically trying to get our piece of it out there so that, when the discussions are taking place, people aren't just talking about WMATA. Sure, WMATA is the big number, but we all need our place in there. And I'll take this opportunity to thank Supervisor Franklin and the chair who set up a meeting with Delegate Torian and Delegate Sickles. We had an opportunity to sort of go over those types of things with them. Delegate Torian is the chair of appropriations in the House, and Delegate Sickles is the vice chair. So as whatever comes out of SJ 28 ends up going to different committees, at least we know now the chair and the vice chair of appropriations understands VRE's perspective, and hopefully we'll take that into consideration when they're looking at the different languages. And again, our biggest concern here, or it might not be a concern, but what we want to not happen is that this is all about WMATA and that there isn't discussion about VRE, OmniRide, Fairfax Connector, et cetera.
Madam Chair, can I just add, so one of the things that, actually on Monday, I'm going to be briefing House Appropriations on the overall, and the messaging on VRE is as prominent, in fact, perhaps even more, because we know there's a lot about WMATA out there. And so the team has been absolutely fantastic. We've been working very closely with Mark and others on the funding conversation. And so there is recognition. I was even talking to Senator Evan and Delegate Sickles last night, and they already previewed, but the conversation is literally, it's holistic. And I want to be, even though I'm sitting here at NBTC, the holistic also includes OmniRide. So the conversation is a WMATA one, it's a NBTC local bus one, it is a VRE one, including what is needed after the Long Bridge. That is a part of this conversation. And then also the needs of OmniRide, specifically in terms of having some funding that is reliable. We've had some really good conversations about that. So we're going to get our sort of first test run in a appropriator sense on Monday. SJ 28 will be reconvening on Tuesday, but their recommendations will be on November 5th at their final meeting. So there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes, but the team here at VRE have been working very closely with us. Likewise, the team at OmniRide have been working very closely with NBTC staff as we're sort of staffing this effort to make sure all of these things are involved. But I do want to let you know that a lot of, especially the Northern Virginia and other key legislators, are very informed on all the needs. And so that's sort of real time. That's literally sort of happening this week and next. But I just want to assure, so thank you, Madam Chair, for.
Okay, Mr. Brody.
I wanted to say thank you for that. Because I know I've heard some concern from folks that, hey, is this just going to be the big fish, WMATA, and everyone else will just be sort of scrambling for scraps. And so I really want to say thank you for that and giving a continued effort. I also want to thank Senator Franklin for helping to facilitate that meeting with the Delegate Torian, because, and Christian people know it, and I would say even loud people know it, but especially here as OmniRide and VRE serve as not only transportation for our own folks, frankly, between us and the two cities and this Prince William area, we also serve everyone south and to the west of us, right? So it's key, and I don't preach the choir, especially after what you said, but it's key that the folks that you talk to, Rich, and understand that. Because like I said, a Lutorian will understand that, but some of his colleagues who are in Southside or in Richmond or another part of the city, they may not. So knowing that he has our back on that, knowing that you also are really emphasizing that to the other Northern Virginia folks that may not be as intimately aware of how much we switch in terms of everyone else in sort of that upper rest of Virginia region is key, because to me, we don't want to have these conversations, then 10 years from now go, well, I really wish we had talked about some of this other stuff and have to restart the entire process from scratch. To me, it's great forward to your part, frankly, to have that conversation now, because we don't get very many bites at this apple, right? Everyone knows that. So this is a unique opportunity where we can finally emphasize how much we fit into that adult suspender network. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. However, we can be helpful, continue to reinforce that message.
And Madam Chair, if I could, indeed, in fact, I mean, really, the teams at VRE and OmniRide they've been at the table with the SJ28. I recognize the composition of SJ28 had a geography that looked smaller than that, but the briefings and the involvement and the task force has involved both of those entities, and they are part of it. But indeed, all of you sit around the table, you know legislators, you know the folks who are playing in key roles within your jurisdictions, continue to sort of echo or amplify or bookend the things that are coming out of SJ28, because I think that's really important moving forward. There's a lot of things that need to come into place before session starts. But we've got the attention of the appropriators. I think that's the key thing.
I'll just take the opportunity to encourage, I know Alexandria is working on our legislative package and our priorities to encourage, you know, at your jurisdictional level to address, you know, transit funding and transportation funding in your, you know, respective jurisdictional packages. And the slide that I think could be very useful is within the 2050 plan presentation is that sort of spine slide, you know, that shows all the ways that VRE connects to all the other services all the way out to, you know, Christiansburg or what, you know, like it goes really far west and really far south. So to sort of use that to bring home the point about, you know, how central it is even beyond Northern Virginia in the region. Other comments and questions, or I'll hand it back to Mr. Swartz.
Okay, I will make a comment. Great point here that part of our message is that we have immediate needs. We all know we have immediate needs, and we have to talk about those. And those, you know, are the things we're really pushing for in FJ28. That those are recognized, and that's what the legislation helps to fix. But that post Long Bridge, we will have the opportunity to run a lot more service. The capacity is there. The state is going to spend yeah, I mean, at this point, what's the number on
like 5 quarters
or just
5 billion?
Yeah, we're talking about $5 billion worth of new capacity. It would be a shame if we couldn't run more service. But our message is, and I think this is the message, I'm pretty sure this is the message you guys want me to tell them, we can't do that solely on the backs of the jurisdictions.
Yeah.
The jurisdictions not work to pay for 10, 20 more trains. This has to be the state being a partner. It has to, you know, has to be on us to go out there and find other revenue sources in order to run those trains. Because if it's solely on the back of the jurisdictions, you know, we will leave capacity hanging out there.
Well, just one point of clarification. Since there's others listening, I understand your point, but you say solely in the back of jurisdiction. If you want to remind everyone that the state picks up the access fees that are quite a lot of money, well over $20 million a year, for, you know, and we'll continue, and part of the agreements for CXAC will continue to pay those as the maintenance fees and others for all these projects. So
yeah, I apologize if that sounds like the state has not been a great partner. The state is a great partner. They help us with the access fees. Of course, we get a certain amount of operating assistance every year, but especially with the operating assistance and the CROG, which we're going to talk about after this.
but I do understand your point of the extra service.
Right, that none of that money grows because we add more service. Right. So the new service we add, most of that cost is going to fall to jurisdictions unless we find another way to fund it. So I want to make sure that everybody around the table understands that that's our story, that yes, we have short-term needs, but long-term, we also need to be thinking about what happens post Long Bridge and how do we make the most use of this $5 billion investment that the state made. Really quick, CROC, that's something we want to watch every year, especially this year as changes, you know, it's likely there's going to be some big changes in the way transportation is funding. We want to protect that at all costs. That is, you know, for us, We want to see that grow. We don't want to see anybody sort of try and use that to fund anything else. So we will protect that at all costs. And then every year we always keep our eye on FOIA stuff, so we will continue to do that as well. And then just a point of clarification here, you'll remember, this is just guidelines. This is things, you know, sort of direction to me to keep an eye on the things that you guys care about. Clearly, there will be things that come up that we didn't contemplate in this, and we will adjust as needed. We will talk with the chair, the executive committee, if we need to bring it back to the entire board, depending on how big of an issue it is, do that. But this is not meant to be all encompassing.
Ms. Franklin.
Yeah, I just want to point out that we just kind of sewed up our legislative committee priorities for the county. And one of the things that we did discuss, myself and Supervisor Gordy, was surface transportation. So I think it's good that we're continuing to kind of talk about that, particularly as it expires, I believe, in the next year or something like that. But I think it's good for other jurisdictions to also kind of have some aligned goals so that when we all show up to Richmond, we're kind of preaching the same message so that our legislators really get it that, all right, we've heard this 5 times now, so this must be something important. And the same with our federal partners with Kane and Warner, and really even outside the Virginia delegation. Hopefully we're talking to those people as well.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions on the legislative agenda? Okay, so this isn't an action item this month. It will be next month when we will vote to refer it to the commissions. Thank you so much for the presentation and the work by the committee. With that, we will move on to the spending authority report.
Spending authority report, based on changes in 2020, I would offer spending authority report on the items listed on the item in front of you. I will take a moment and point out in context of the previous conversation that 2 of these items were sole source, and 1 for locomotive and 1 for rail cars. So with that.
Any questions on the spending authority report? All right. Lastly, then, we're going to have a brief presentation from Mr. Schofield on the FY 2027 budget process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. No slides today. We'll be brief. You will get a lot of me next month. We have kicked off our public participation process. We'll be putting ads in newspapers, other notifications. We have scheduled our 3 in-person public hearings, public outreach. So one of those will be at the City Hall in Fredericksburg. One will be at the museum in Manassas, that's right across the street from our station. Those will be the first week of November. You'll see some announcements go out about that. But then we also will have one, as we usually do, during the middle of the day, near to LaFont in one of the hotels down there, so that people who maybe can't do it in the evening but work sort of downtown can come and give us a comment if they want to. We will be recording a video also where we sort of give a slightly higher quality version of the same presentation that anyone who can't join in person can watch online. And of course, we'll be taking comment in all of these venues, whether it's in person or online, letters, calls, however. That public comment period will extend until just about the adoption of the budget in December. We will bring you sort of an interim review of what we've heard at the November meeting, and then we'll bring the rest of it to you in December so that you'll be able to know what we've heard from the public on that. As far as the operating budget, we have just completed our usual meetings with the department heads, talking about their requests for the coming year, looking at, to be honest, where can we squeeze things? Are there items that we can hold off on or defer? Really trying to dig into a couple of items in particular. One is security. I can imagine you all know this as well. That's an area that's had a lot of cost growth for us in the last couple of years. So just to try to dig into that a little more, make sure we're doing the right things there. We are seeing more increases in the cost of maintaining our facilities, both because VRE is getting larger and also because we're 30, however many years old now. And so some of those facilities just are needing more work. So that's another area that we're digging into. Obviously, we are in the middle of the procurement for the O&M contract. We sort of have some placeholder numbers in the budget there, but by the time we get to the end of the process, we'll be able to put the real numbers in there. So when the timing is appropriate, we'll talk about that. As far as the capital budget, we're working closely with Dallas and his team of project managers. You know, they love to tweak their costs and their schedules up to the very last moment. I love them for it. We are looking at a pencils down date of the end of October 1st. Then we'll be able to take all of that information, put that into sort of our grant plan, you know, looking ahead, where are the gaps that we have, and how do we propose to potentially fill those gaps. One important project, not the only one, is the VRE lead track going into Broad Run Station and the maintenance and storage facility. You know, we will not be able to expand our post Long Ridge. We won't be able to expand our service on the Manassas line until that track is in place. We're looking at a number of different options for how we might be able to, at a minimum, advance the design of that now, but potentially even to lock in some construction money for that. So I anticipate us coming to talk to you more about that in November. The one sort of substantive item that I want to bring to your attention has to do with the master agreements survey. We were intending to conduct the survey on October the 1st. You all probably know what happened on October the 1st as far as the government. We made the decision not to conduct this survey that day, given the concern that it would not be representative. We got positive responses back from our jurisdictional partners on that decision. We are not at a drop dead date on it yet, but we are approaching it. We would say that probably the last day that we think we could do a survey and have it be valid would be approximately Wednesday, November the 12th. Any later than that, you start to get into the Thanksgiving holidays, and then if you try to do it after the Thanksgiving holidays, it just doesn't give us enough time to process it and to put it into the budget. We luckily are able to stand up the survey pretty quickly now because we've moved it over to mobile rather than being on paper. So our view is that if the shutdown were to be solved by November the 7th, which is a Friday, we would be able to turn around and stand that up and do this survey on the 12th. So if the shutdown is not resolved by that date, I think we have two options, and I will be clear which of those I think is the preferred option. One of them would be to do the survey anyway on the 12th, even on the more limited ridership that we have right now. I think that has some risks in it, that the results may not be representative, and we would need to have a discussion among the board to sort of agree ahead of time that we would accept the results of that, rather than, well, let's wait and see what the results are and then come back and try to decide whether to use it or not. Because to be candid, there would definitely be winners and losers in that process. I think the better option would be to do what we've done previously during the pandemic when we did not conduct this survey. We just use the allocation from the most recent one that we did last year. Since we are also not requesting any increase in the jurisdictional contribution, the overall pie, that would result in every jurisdiction having exactly the same contribution to VRE that it did for fiscal 26. I've spoken to Min Chow. There, as during the pandemic, there is, as long as we're clear about it in the budget resolution, there would be no issue with just relying on the previous year's results. So I would pause there for a moment and turn back to Ms. Bagley.
Yeah. So just to be clear, does everybody track sort of the dates laid out there? There's sort of a shutdown would have to be over by the 7th to potentially do the survey on the 12th. If it ends before the 7th, we can move forward, do the survey as per usual. If it hasn't ended by the 7th, the preferred option is to use last year's data for the reasons outlined by Mr. Schofield. And so I want to make sure everybody sort of hears that, because we won't meet again before these decision points, happen. And I also wanted to just restate what's sort of been said in two different places, but in this year's budget cycle, we're in the fair change budget cycle. Is that
That's correct.
Right.
Yes, I wasn't explicit. Yes. Part of the reason that we're doing all those public hearings is because we have the proposed change.
So we're in the, so jurisdictional subsidy arguably, wouldn't, this is the off year for that discussion. This is the year for the potential fare change. Historically, we've done those every other year. So we happen to be in the fare change discussion this year. I will express my preference, I think, with going with last year's data if we don't have a non-shutdown based survey opportunity. I think from a ridership perspective, we're not in a dramatically different numbers space. Ridership was up a bit, but not in such a way that I think it would dramatically alter things. So this really is sort of our last timed opportunity to give direction to staff, what to do in certain, whichever lanes open up, which lane do we want to go down? And so, appreciate any feedback or sort of soft indicate, non-voting indications to Mr. Schofield and to Mr. Richards that we're okay with the paths outlined here. Ms. Franklin.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, we just finished talking about our legislative priorities. Going back to the meeting that we had with Chairman Forian and Mr. Sickles, I think, our budget kind of ties into some of that too, because that was primarily kind of what the purpose of the meeting was, and to understand that, we still have some challenges with VRE that we're still dealing with as a result of COVID. So, figuring out how we can continue to communicate our budget needs, even though we vote on that as a jurisdiction, I think it's important for them to kind of be kept in the loop in terms of where each jurisdiction is in terms of supporting VRE. And I think that gives them a better sense of, all right, we know the jurisdictions are doing this much. And so the state needs to step up and do this much, which the state has been great. But just saying, it's probably good to kind of keep them in the loop in terms of this process also.
That's something I think we can make sure government affairs is a part of, and any briefings y'all continue to have at the, SJ 28 level. But just before we sort of move on, I'm not sure what else is on your presentation there, but just wanted to make sure that, we sort of paused with that for a moment and sat with it. Because we will hear back in our November meeting, either a survey was done, the results are going to be in the proposed, budget that Mark will present us, or a survey wasn't done. This is, everybody's numbers will essentially stay the same based on last year's proposal. That's the two things we're going to hear. And I'm seeing general agreement and ascension to that. Yeah, okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't have much more. I just want to encourage everyone, we'll be taking 2 bites at the budget apple next month. We will have a main presentation during the operations board meeting, and then we'll dig into more detail during the committee meeting afterwards. I would encourage even those of you who are not on the committee, if you can make the time to join that discussion, we'll dig into both the operating and the capital budget more there. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Schofield? All right, thank you, sir. Okay, where are we? We're not doing a closed session, right? Okay, so we are to operations board members' time. I'll just want to make 2 quick comments. One, I was at the kickoff of the Tour de VRE and was really regretful that I couldn't ride this year, but I will be back next year. It is a great event, and even those of you who don't ride a bike, I would encourage you to come out to even one of the stops that they do, and you can hand people bananas and cheer them on, and it's really an inspiring event. And I just want to express my appreciation to Dallas and everyone here who volunteered. I saw a lot of staff there that day helping out with Smiles. The other thing I just wanted to apprise the full board of is the CEO search committee is hard at work, and the work is going very well. We remain optimistic that we will have a recommendation to the board in November on a candidate. That is obviously pending everything the next 3 weeks sort of playing out according to schedule, but we are on schedule and the process is moving along very well. So that's my update, Mr. Stork.
Thanks, Sarah. Sarah's doing a great job of keeping those organized, and we've been putting a lot of hours in to interview some of my candidates. I absolutely regret that I was not around last weekend for the Tour de VRE, but there is a tour to Mount Vernon this Saturday. and we're expecting great weather, and you're absolutely welcome to join us. You can go online to find out the information on it. But we start out at Woodlawn at 8:30 in the morning. Woodlawn in Cope Lady House. If you're not familiar with that, and be another reason to come. Learn more about it. Thank you.
No updates, great to see you.
No, that's either, I don't know what's wrong with me, but every first week of October I will have a conflict. And then the second week of October, I have to go somewhere else. So, but yeah, keep it up. I mean, I hear a lot of good things about, from my constituents about participating in this room here. So.
Hope to see all of you Tuesday at 2 o'clock in Manassas Park for our ribbon cutting.
Thank you for having me, everyone. It's a great meeting.
I want to thank all those jurisdictions that we work with in Transform Virginia. We often have tiny parcels that we might need from various entities, and for the most part, everyone's been great. If not, I might be having side conversations with some people, but everyone's been great for the most part. So that'll continue. I mentioned earlier, we do now own half of the quarter, 5 jurisdictions, starting with Arlington down to Prince William County. So CSX is still the operator of record, though. Just want to keep that in mind. So if there's safety things of that nature, CSX is still the operator of record. That was those deeds were confirmed in the last month. So with that, thank you, everyone. Happy Halloween. Please be safe for all the trick or treaters out there. Please watch out for them in a couple weeks. Thanks.
Excuse me.
I actually am excited. Community Choice had a small, but I hope an important part in the Manassas Park garage. And so I'm excited to be out there. Hope the weather is just as lovely as it is today. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the DMV Moves, which is sort of the DC, Maryland, Virginia, is actually doing a rail summit at Union Station next Friday at 10 a.m. I'm not running it, but I just want to make sure that folks know, because my understanding is that the invitation is open for elected officials and staff interested in a lot of the rail activities that are going on there. So lots of things between now and beginning of November in terms of funding and priorities from both DMV Moves and SJ 28. So lots of stuff to watch in that space.
Well, first, let me thank Leslie for putting me in the game, because this has been very informative for me. So, Madam Chair, I'll be real brief and quick in saying it was meant for me to sit next to Kate, because the discussion that she mentioned about, when you're right, keeping relevant and present in the discussion that's going on, because it does seem a lot of rail and Armada and Metro in DC and the Northern Virginia area. But as the 4-term chair of PRTC of Omni-Ride, I can say that the Long Bridge project has always been very important to me. Since we did that ribbon cut and brought out every elected official in the world who wrote that big check in. And I'm just excited, waiting to see that done, because it does then open up the discussion about Omni-Ride, because Omni-Ride is our metro for Prince William County. I don't believe we'll ever get metro down here, but so never. That may one day be something. But what it is right now is our bus system, and so we have to find a way to expand that and grow it in the county. And there's this funding discussion that our well is running dry. So I've learned that this is a great session for me to be in. So I'm going to try to make one of these once a month just to come sit in, and I can hear more and see the connection point. I think it's very important. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
I would just like to thank our alternates for helping us make quorum, and I will be with you in spirit on Tuesday and wish you the best.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on the first meeting, and thank you for stepping in. I truly appreciate it. Enjoying the comments in regards to the CEO, even though I think I'm the newest member, I'm truly learning and enjoying, the interactions and. Right now, we do have the results. You're proud because the committee is working really, really hard. I did want to say when the government opens back on hopefully soon, I would like to see a bit more of a harder effort when it comes to marketing. I know I've said it before, especially in the Manassas line. I do believe that there is big market there that we're tackling, that we can work on. Or whoever is appointed our next CEO, but I will continue to ask them my remarks. I'm also looking forward to the new train soon. And, for the residents, I hope they continue to look into the changes. There will be, big changes for the next few years. But like everybody said, there's, unless you go through it, you won't be able to see the benefits of that. And it's a long term benefit. And everybody that showed up today, thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. And, I always enjoy coming to this board meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And that reminds me, actually, I think I can comment on this. We unfortunately, the 100 million rider event was also scheduled for October 1st when the shutdown happened. So we recognize that might be all. We did actually hit the 100 million rider achievement, I think on the 5th or the 6th of the month, a few days later, but we did have it. We did have a little press release. We were still thinking about how to properly sort of fet that achievement, but you reminded me that, we that did come and go. And, it is an impressive achievement for the organization and something, we should pass along. And maybe we'll have, I think the November meeting's gonna be pretty exciting. We might have updates on the Manassas train. We'll have hopefully updates on the CEO search process. We'll have a big budget dialogue. So we'll see everybody in November. We are adjourned. Excuse me.